thermostat, I'm going to drain the radiator, and you don't necessarily have to do this, but it's going to avoid a big mess. Have a collection bucket ready and locate the petcock, which is right here. I'm going to use some pliers because most of the time they're stuck. Go ahead and break it free and remove the petcock. Don't remove it all the way, just enough to drain the coolant. Okay, once it's down to a slow drip like this, you can go ahead and cap it off. Make sure it's nice and snug. With your coolant drained, you don't have to drain it all the way, but at least drain it some, because you're going to have to disconnect this upper radiator hose. So grab some pliers and remove the hose clamp. Break it free from the radiator. Once it's off of there, I'm actually going to take it off of the other end too. That way it's completely out of my way. If you twist it, sometimes that breaks the hose free, and just pull it up and out. The next thing I want to do is take off the 4 nuts that hold the fan clutch onto the fan bracket. So use your 12mm wrench and break them all free. They make a tool to hold this bracket. The best thing I can think of is to use 2 wrenches. So my first wrench is going to hold it here and prevent it from spinning. My second wrench is going to break the nut free. Okay, once I have it broken free, I'm going to spin this, move on to the next one. They're pretty tight, just so you know. And you might say, well, what are you going to do when you get to the last one? I'll show you what I'm going to do. I have a plan. Okay. So even though I held this one to break that one free, it still didn't tighten up as much as it was before. So I can actually break it free again. Okay, and here's my last one. So I'm going to hold this one. And yes, I know it's going to tighten. But once this is free, I can loosen this one up. There we go. That one's loose again. And then if you just slowly tug it, there you go. So now all 4 are free. Now in the back of the fan shroud, you're going to have 4 10mm bolts. They look like that one right there. You're going to have to remove all 4 of them. There are 2 on each side. This one up here I couldn't get with the electric impact, so I'm just going to do it by hand. Okay, now the fan shroud is off. Perfect. Holding the fan shroud back, go ahead and take off all 4 of these nuts that hold the fan clutch to the fan bracket. The reason I'm doing it in this order is because this way the fan shroud isn't flopping around on me as I tried to break these free, and I didn't want to remove these completely because otherwise the fan just falls off, so I also didn't want that to happen. At this point, pull the fan away from the bracket, make sure you don't hit the radiator fins, and then pull the fan and the fan shroud up as one whole assembly, which can be a little bit tricky, but doable. Oops. There you go. The next step is going to be removing the serpentine belt. So with a 14mm, go ahead and pull counterclockwise on this tensioner, remove the belt from wherever, and then, well, remove the whole belt. Also remove this pulley here. Since I'm here and I already have my 14mm in my hand, I'm going to go ahead and remove this idler pulley. Oh, I guess these things are tighter than I thought. There we go. Next, I'm going to take this throttle body cover off, 2 10mm nuts. Pull that straight up and out. Because we're going to be dealing with a lot of similar hardware, I'm going to put what I can back so that I don't accidentally lose it. And loosen up the hose clamp that's right here. You don't have to take it all the way off, but loosen it up. Loosen up this one as well. There's a vacuum line here that you have to disconnect, as well as 3 in the back. Now you can take this and wiggle it off of the air filter assembly and wiggle it off the throttle body. Sometimes it gets stuck on there. Okay, bye-bye. Set that aside. I'm gonna put it right there. What I'd like to do next is remove this thermostat housing. That's gonna give me a lot more access here. You can leave the hose attached. 12mm nuts, there's 3 of them all the way around. The bottom one's a little tricky to get to, still doable. More coolant will come out when you pull the thermostat out, so I'll just keep that in mind. I'm going to remove the thermostat from the housing, that way it doesn't accidentally fall. Make sure you set it aside in a clean, safe area. And just like with my other hardware, I'm going to go ahead and start it back on here so I don't confuse it or lose it. Off all the bolts, disconnect any hoses that are attached, and take off the timing cover. So this was actually, the nut was supposed to break free from the stud, but whatever, this works too. There's one more timing cover left, and that's this small one right here. It's actually held on by 12mm, not 10. Go ahead and break those free, and then remove those. At this point, go ahead and break free 2 nuts, one here and another one right here on top. And you can actually just remove them completely. There's also a 14mm nut right here that you have to break free. This holds the top of the alternator in. Go ahead and remove this one too. From underneath, break free this bolt that holds the alternator on the bottom. Also break free this 12mm nut. All right, remove this. There are also 3 14mm bolts holding this power steering pump in place. Break these free. Now this can pull out a little bit so that it can free up the alternator. Now you can let this rest right here. Last thing is this 12mm bolt here. Break that free, loosen it up. This is the last thing holding this tensioner in. Grab the tensioner, pull it straight out, and, well, here's your tensioner. So if you notice, this stud for me came loose when I was taking the nut off, so I'm going to tighten it up. I don't want this to stay loose. It's a 12mm. Get your new tensioner in here, line it up. It only lines up with 3 studs because the other one is a bolt. Make sure it slides in all the way. This bolt was a little rusty, so I cleaned it up and coated it with some anti-seize that should hopefully prevent further rust in the future. Go ahead and snug this one up. Get your alternator back up and position it on these 2 studs. Push the power steering pump back and start in all the bolts. Start in the slower bolt, the big 14mm nut up top, and this 12mm nut here. Start in the power steering pump bolts, and start in this nut up top. Snug it all up. I'm going to torque the power steering pump nut to 16 foot-pounds, and then the 2 bolts to 33 foot-pounds. Next, I'm going to snug up the alternator hardware. And I'm going to torque this 14mm bolt as well as the 14mm nut up top to 29 foot-pounds. And this 12mm nut gets torqued to 11 foot-pounds. Back up top, I'm going to start these 2 nuts for the tensioner and snug them up, make them nice and tight. Next, I'm going to put back this center timing cover and start in the 2 long bolts that go with it, one on the bottom and one on the top. Next, I'd like to install this timing cover, and if you remember, the cover came off with this stud and I was able to separate it. This will help me line everything up better and, well, install it easier. So put in that stud and snug it up. Now put the timing cover on. Start on this nut. And start in your 3 bolts surrounding the timing cover. Go ahead and snug all these up. Next, I'm going to put back this idler pulley, snug this up. Make sure it's nice and tight. And because I had a lot of coolant, dust, and debris, I want to clean all these pulleys up before I reinstall the belt. With it open like this is the best time to do it, so I'm just going to spray it all with brake parts cleaner, clean all the pulleys up. Next, I want to install the thermostat and the thermostat housing here. I'm going to clean up this area just in case any debris got inside. Reinstall the thermostat. Make sure the little bleeder valve goes up. That's going to help bleed out the air from the system once it's full. Place the housing over. Of course, make sure the gasket is seated properly. That's the only thing that's sealing up this thermostat. Start on your nuts. Torque these 3 nuts to 14 foot-pounds. Next, I'm going to put this pulley on and then install the belt. It'll be easiest to do that right now. And once I put the belt on, that's going to hold this pulley in place too. Make sure your belt is clean and free of any debris. The belt routing you can find right on top of the radiator support in front, right behind the passenger side headlight. So it goes over the power steering pulley, underneath the alternator, over the tensioner, underneath the harmonic balancer, and then over the fan pulley, over this idler here, and then down and around the AC. I'm actually going to take it off the idler, put it over the AC. With a 14mm, take tension off the tensioner. Position it on all the pulleys properly, and go over the idler pulley. Make sure this fan pulley is properly seated, and let go of the tensioner. At this point, double check. Make sure that the belt is seated around all the ribs as it's supposed to. It's good on the AC, it's good on the idler, it's good on the power steering, it's good on the alternator, it's good on the tensioner, oh, but it is not good on the crank. So loosen it up just a little bit, and all I have to do is push it over. It was almost 1 rib off, and that is perfect. Once I put the fan clutch in place, that's going to snug this pulley right up. I'm going to reconnect this air intake hose here, make sure it gets seated all the way, both on the throttle body as well as on the air box, and snug up the hose clamps. Don't forget to reconnect your 3 vacuum hoses back here. This large one is the PCV. And then there's a medium-sized one and a teensy tiny one And there's another vacuum hose right here on the side. Connect that one too. Go ahead and put this throttle body cover on. Snug it up. Over by this driver's side timing cover, don't forget to reconnect all of your wires and connections. Plug in the cam sensor. Next, get your fan and fan shroud. Slide those down and in. Pay attention to your radiator fins so that you don't damage them. Line up the fan to its bracket. Line up the shroud. I'm going to start the bolts in that hold the shroud so it doesn't flop around on me. And I'm going to tighten these up before I finalize putting the fan on. Start on the 4 nuts that hold the fan. And using the same wrench trick, go ahead and snug them all up. Make them nice and tight. Now that they're all bottomed out, I'm going to make sure they're all nice and tight. You can loosen up on the tensioner, and by doing that you'll be able to freely spin these around so you can get to other nuts and bolts without spinning the whole engine backwards, which you're not really supposed to do. And then if you actually put pressure on the tensioner the other way, you can put tension on the belt in such a way in which it holds this pulley better, and you can better snug up these nuts. Go ahead and put your upper radiator hose back in and reconnect the clamps. I like to position them about where they were before. That's going to help the hose seal up the best because it's already molded around the clamp. Do that for both. All right, let's get ready to fill the cooling system. So what I have here is a spill-proof burping funnel. What that does is it's going to make this the highest point in the cooling system, so naturally all the air is going to want to rise and bleed out of here before I actually run the engine. So once this is mounted, make sure everything else is properly connected, which it is, and double check your petcock and make sure that's closed. I know mine is. Go ahead and fill it up with the manufacturer specified coolant. I'm using Universal. The key ingredient though is ethylene glycol. Make sure it has that and no other ingredients. If you don't know exactly what to use, just refer to your owner's manual, it'll tell you. Now that air has stopped coming out of here, I'm going to turn on the engine and let it run. I want to let it run until it reaches operating temperature. Feel the upper and lower hoses and make sure they're similar temperature. If one is cold, one is hot, the thermostat has not opened yet and you have to keep letting it run. Watch the temperature gauge inside on the dash and make sure it does not overheat. If it does, that means there's an air pocket, so shut it off, let it cool down, turn it back on, and just do that until it runs at operating temperature with no air bubbles coming out of here. Also, this whole time, make sure you have the heat on, so turn up the heat to the hottest point and then turn on the blower so that you can feel and make sure that heat is coming out of the vents. If there's no heat, that means the heater core still has air in it. You can rev it up a little bit to get the water pump circulating faster. Just make sure, because sometimes it'll overflow here. Once that's done, go ahead and cap this off. If you squeeze the radiator hose just a little bit, it'll release some of the coolant so that when you pull this funnel out, it doesn't spill over. So pull the funnel up and release the radiator hose at the same time. And what I'm going to do is put the rest of this coolant in the overflow. And right there, I'm at the max line on the overflow. Remove your adapter here and reinstall your radiator cap. Now go ahead and turn it back on. Take it for a road test and still keep an eye on the temperature gauge. Make sure everything is running properly. And after that, you should be good to go.